gold mines. She sold too soon, or she'd have made millions and died of a broken heart, they say, when she found out that mistake. Still, she left a lot more than it's good for a young fellow to start life with. That boy has been to Cambridge, and now he loafs about the club, pretends to be a judge of wine, gets every stitch of clothes from London. Pah!" Mr Pennycuick spat neatly with his precision over the veranda floor into a flower bed. "But these mother's darlings, you know them. If Mrs Dalzell could see him now, I daresay she'd be bursting with pride, for there's no denying that he's a smart looking chap. But his father would be ashamed of him." "Daddy dear," Mary gently expostulated. "So he would. An idle, finicking scamp, that'll never do an honest stroke of work as long as he lives. And I wish Deb wouldn't waste her time listening to his nonsense. Isn't it about time to be getting ready for dinner, Moll?" Mary looked through a window at a clock indoors, and said it was. Guthrie hailed the news, and rose to his feet. But not yet did he escape. His host, hoisting himself heavily out of his big cane chair, hollowed like a basin under his vast weight, extended a detaining hand. "Come with me to my office a minute," he half whispered. "I'd like to show you something." With apparent alertness, but sighing inwardly, Guthrie followed his host to the room in the old part of the house which he called his office. Mr Pennycuick carefully shut the door, opened a desk full of drawers and pigeon-holes, and brought forth a bit of cardboard with a shy air. He had never shown it to his family, and doubtless would not have shown it now if he had not been growing old and soft and sentimental. It was a prim and niggling little water-colour drawing of English Redford, a flat facade, with swallows as big as condors flying over the roofs, and dogs that could never have got through any doorway gambolling on the lawn in front. A tiny Mary Carey in one corner was just, and only just, visible to the naked eye. "This was done for me, when we were both young, by your aunt," said Mr Pennycuick, gloating upon his treasure over Guthrie's shoulder. "Not my aunt," explained Guthrie. "I don't know what relation, but long way farther off than that. I am only a very small Carey, you know, sir." Mr Pennycuick testily intimated, as before, that to be a Carey at all was enough for him. It was his excuse for these confidences, of which he was half ashamed. While Guthrie studied the poor picture, trying to look as interested as he was expected to be, his host turned and stared down into the drawer that had held it for so many years. Other things were there. The usual dead flowers, still holding together, still fusty to the nose. The usual yellowing ball glove. The usual dance and invitation cards, and faded letters, with their edges frayed. A bookmarker with an embroidered friendship, mixed up with forget-me-nots in coloured silks upon perforated card, backed by a still gleaming red satin ribbon looped at one end and fringed out at the other. The book that it was tucked into, The Language of Flowers, a large valentine in a wrapper with many broken seals, some newspaper cuttings, half a sixpence, with a hole in it, and a daguerreotype in a leather case. This last he took up, opened and gazed at steadily, until his companion was compelled to interrupt him with an inquiring eye. Then he passed it over, and Guthrie turned it this way and that, until he caught the outlines of a long aquiline face between bunched ringlets, and a long bodice with a deep point, which he understood to have belonged to his distant relative at some period before he was born. "And this?" he murmured politely. "Yes," said Mr Pennycuick, "that's her, and I've never shown it to a soul before, not even to my wife." A sweet expression, Fair, was she? Fair as a lily, and as pure, and as beautiful, gentle as a dove, with blue eyes. Guthrie did not care for this type just now. He liked them dark and flashing and spirited, like Miss Deborah. But he murmured, sympathetically. "The loveliest woman in England," the old man maundered on. "Surely you must have heard of her, in the family?" Guthrie had not only heard of her, as we know, he had seen her, but he shook a denying head, and dropped another hint of his own position in the family, outside the royal enclosure, as it were. "Well, now, I'll just tell you what happened," said Mr Pennycuick, turning to the open drawer again. "Strictly between ourselves, of course, and only because you are a Carey, you understand. Somehow you bring it all back." He was fumbling with the big valentine, getting it out of its case. "Yes," Guthrie encouraged him, while inwardly chafing to be gone. "You see this?" It was an exquisite structure of foamy paper lace, silver doves, gauze winged cupids, transfixed hearts and wreaths of flowers, miraculously delicate. How it had kept its frail form intact for the many years of its age was a wonder to behold. "You see this?" said the old man. "Well, when I was a young fellow, the 14th of February was a time. I can tell you, you fellows nowadays, you don't know what fun is, nor how to go a courting, nor anything. I was at old Redford that year, and she was at Wellwood, and all through the sleet and snow I rode there after dark, tied my horse to a tree, crept up that nut walk, you know it, and round by the east terrace to the porch, and laid my valentine on the doorstep, and clanged the bell, and hid behind the yew fence till the man came out to get it. Then I went home, and last thing at night there was a clatter at the door at Redford, and I dashed out to catch whoever it was. Her brother, she said, but wasn't quite smart enough. If only I'd seen him, I should have known, as I ought to have, without that, but I didn't. It never occurred to me that she'd send the answer so soon. And she had disguised her writing in the address. And there was another girl named of Myrtle Viney, who used to have myrtle on her note paper, and all over the place, and here these flowers look to me as if they were meant for myrtle, and these two crossed arrows are like capital V, and how I came to be such an egregious dolt, Lord only knows. Well, I've paid for it, that I have. I've paid for it. Look here, don't touch. I'll show you what I found out when it was too late, after she'd played shy with me till I got angry and left her, and it was all over. My eyes aren't good enough to see it now, but I suppose it's there still." With infinite care and the small blade of his pocket knife, he lifted the tiny tip of a tiny cupid's wing. With bent head and puckered eyelids, Guthrie peered under, and read, "Yours, M.C.," written on a space of paper hardly larger than a pin's head. "In my valentine that night," said Mr Pennycuick, "I'd asked her to have me. I didn't hide it up in this way. I knew, while I wondered that she took no notice, that she must have seen it. This was her answer. And I never got it, sir, till she was married to another man, and then by the merest accident. Then I couldn't even have the satisfaction of telling her that I'd got it, and how it was I hadn't got it before. Of course, I wasn't going to upset her after she was married to another man. I've had to let her think what she liked of me." Guthrie was certainly interested now, but not as interested as he would have been the day before. The day before, this story would have moved him to pour out the tale of his own untimely and irreparable loss. He and old Mr Pennycuick would, metaphorically speaking, have mingled their tears together. "You forget, off and on," said Mr Pennycuick, as he wrapped up his treasure with shaking hands and etc.